Alright, welcome back to the channel, and thanks for following along with this devac process. Hope this is helping people. So now we're going to be part 3 of this ordeal. And now that we have the carburetor torn down to where it needs to be, and all the emission stuff is out of the way, we're going to work on the vacuum caps for the carburetor and the intake manifold, and then in some of the pipe plugs we need to put in to the intake manifold to plug off some of the water jackets and so forth. You don't have to do this aspect of it, but I did in this case because it just makes it look cleaner. You can do it however you want, but like I said, you don't have to have any of this stuff capped off. And then we'll get into vacuum hoses, how to route that. And then we'll go over fuel line stuff. We'll check the plugs, see how the engine has been running. I went ahead and put some new carburetor plugs and wires in it just to make things much easier. I recommend that. Just makes things easier to work out the tuning process. So let's get into it. So now we're going to move on to, don't worry, I've made this stuff. I'm just doing this now since I have the parts. So we're going to go ahead and actually remove these. This here, there's one back here, there's one here, and then there's the water jacket that went here, which I'm taking out. You don't have to. You can rehook it back up to the carb or whatever. But when you do undo these, coolant's going to come out. So this is what they look like. They're a 3/8 NPT. I just went down to the local auto parts store and got some 3/8 NPT plugs. So you don't need these. All these are is like a thermal vacuum switch, ideally. So when the water gets to a certain temperature, there's a little valve in here that opens and closes, which allows vacuum through. So you can either leave these uncapped or replace these. Were like I think 49 cents each. So I mean, it's up to you how you want to go about this. This will look a lot cleaner, but yeah, so you don't need these. So it's a 19 millimeter, and you just give it the old. Some of these are probably going to be tough. You're probably going to swear. You got to remember, this car's 30 some years, these cars are pretty close to 30 some years old. Brass and copper don't always go together, or aluminum and copper, especially when they're in water that changes temperature constantly. Sorry about the shaky camera. I'm trying to do one thing with one hand because my camera guy's not here today, so just bear with me. But got this one, getting this one out. Should be able to turn it out by hand by now. So yeah, it's just another 3/8. This is all the nuts and bolts and stuff I pulled off, actually. There's, I guess if you want to get technical, some weight saving. Pull these vacuum hoses off and make your, see, like that one just busted apart. It just broke off. So this will make life a little bit easier getting the hoses off. Again, you will lose some coolant when you do this. So either catch it and reuse it, or it's a good time to do a flush, whatever you want to do. So these can be a little tricky to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off or whatever, and I'm going to finish getting these loose, and then we'll go ahead and install the 3/8 NPT plugs. So a 1/2-inch 12-point socket is what happens to work for this. It could be different depending on what you get. So this is just what's working for me. I always recommend getting things in by hand first, because you can strip aluminum out pretty easy. Same with brass. So I'm gonna get these. Actually, you guys can just struggle with me while I do this one-handed and try to work the wrench. So we'll get the old trusty wrench in there. Tighten her up. Yeah, like I said, don't forget to use your Teflon tape or it will leak. Because again, sorry about the shakiness. I'm by myself doing this, so doing the best I can. So there's 5 total to plug off if you're not going to, 4 if you're going to leave the water aspect to the carburetor. But otherwise, there's 4 and then 5 if you plug that off like I have done. If you live in a cold climate, I would probably suggest keeping it. I don't really, it doesn't get, we get snow for a couple days a year here occasionally, so it doesn't really do much good per se, other than robbing performance. No, it's probably does more good than harm, but in this aspect, I'm not going to keep it. And like I said, you don't have to do this. Just makes it look cleaner. You can just leave those vacuum port things in. Nothing's gonna happen to those. And then I'll get the last one, which is right back over here. And ta-da, we're done. So it's not that hard to get to these. Like I said, it's a 19. And the other one, the big water one, I believe is 21 or 22. But you can see them there. And then if we come over here, you can see them there. So now we got that done. Go ahead and put the block off plates on. We'll be ready to throw the carburetor back on. Alright, let's talk vacuum caps. So I'm going to go over with you guys. This is, you can get vacuum caps anywhere. Just go down to a local auto parts store. I just got like a generic Dorman pack from my local auto parts store. Probably want to get 2 of them. But with these, so these are the ones I'm using for these smaller ports. They're a little small, so what I do is like to cut them. And then squirt a little WD-40 down in them to help lubricate. And then I'll try to show you. They just kind of move this out of the way a bit. They just kind of slide on. And you just push them down. Make sure you got them all the way down. So, the ones that get caps, vacuum caps, is this one. It's the back side of the carburetor. The 2 bottom ones here, and then there's this one here. These 2 get left open. This one gets capped. And over here, a vacuum hose is going to go to this one. This gets capped. This stays open. And then up here, this and this will also get a vacuum hoses. And then this one gets capped. I also like to take zip ties and make sure the vacuum caps stay on there. I have had them come loose and you know, it's never a good thing. Creates a vacuum leak and yada yada yada. So I'll go ahead and throw some. Now you can do this, and I just happen to have some blue zip ties laying around. You can do it in black. You can do it in whatever color you want. I just happen to have these, so I'm using them. So I got vacuum hose, caps, the choke kit, and some vacuum hose. It's like 20 bucks. So it's not really terribly expensive. We'll talk about the choke here eventually. So just throwing a vacuum cap on here. And then trying to get one back here on these might be a little tricky, but do the best that you can. Sometimes, I mean, you can get better fitting vacuum caps, but it just happened to be, I had some of the stuff already laying around, so I'm going to use it. But it's all up to you how you want to do this. Hell, you could take some vacuum hose and put some screws in them and seal them up that way. Personally, to me, that's kind of ghetto, but to each their own. So we got those. We got this little guy here. We got that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some cutters and we'll get those cut off. And then we'll move on to the next aspect of this. We'll talk about the throttle cable bracket. Just a pretty simple modification to get that to work. So you don't have to vacuum or zip tie these, but just gives you that extra insurance that nothing's gonna pop off. So now that I got that done, we can move on to the next thing. Get this put back in the bag. Actually, one more thing I was going to mention, but now I forgot what it was. Shocking. It'll come to me. Let me look at this a minute. I'll figure it out. Oh, and then this one, you'll want to block off two, just for safety precautions. Water shouldn't flow through there anymore, but I'm not going to make a 100% guarantee on that. So find a cap that fits that. Throw a zip tie on it. And call it a day. So the carburetor is pretty much, oh, I remember what it is now. So I was talking about this little O-ring in the vacuum port here. I just like to take, actually I'll just take one out of here, for example. A kind of fairly aggressive screw, as you can kind of see here. And just tighten her down in there. Simple as that. You'll have no vacuum leak now. So that aspect's done. So now we're going to move on to the throttle cable part of this. So what you want to do, I'm going to set this off to the side. So we're going to go ahead and cut probably roughly somewhere in that area. We're going to cut this off and we'll just take the screws off. So I'll see if I can get these off shockingly by hand. Some of these sometimes are easy to come off, sometimes they're a real pain. It just depends on somebody's Loctited them or Godzilla put them on from the factory. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut, and then we will show you what it's looking like. So I got this chopped off, which went over here. I smoothed it out, cut the ears off, that one here. Make sure to round off your corners so you don't cut yourself. And then grab the screws that you had somewhere, sometime, at some place, which I have right here. Keep them close by, or not be as unorganized as I kind of am being a little bit. So you'll go there. Well, you could cut that off there if you really wanted to, and then this one goes here. And then grab your 8, because these are kind of soft and they will kind of strip. So get that nice and tight. And now you have your throttle cable bracket again. So pretty simple. A couple more things we'll go over. This is your idle adjuster right here. There's no actual knob to it. You almost got to grab with some pliers. We will have to mess with that. This isn't irrelevant anymore, and then we will go into the choke stuff once I get it on the car. So now we'll go to the car and we will show you what vacuum ports you need to plug off there. So on the car, on the intake manifold itself, other than these two things, you just need to plug this one off, and there's one over here. Now, if I recall right, these are the white vacuum caps you get in like the Dorman kit. Maybe it's the black, I can't remember. I think black's too loose. Oh, the black ones fit just perfect. So it's the black ones from the Dorman kit that fit these nice and tight. I will throw a zip tie over all of those, and yeah, that's all it is for that. So like I said, it's just that one, and there's one here. And then we've dealt with the brass down here, which you don't have to plug these off. You can just leave open, but that's how I've decided to do it. So I'm gonna get some zip ties on those, and we'll put the carburetor back on. One thing I do like to recommend to people, you're this far into this, check your hoses. The coolant hose, check for cracks. You know, you may need to replace them like the vacuum hoses. This is for the PCV. Check that. If that's got a crack anywhere in it, cause a huge vacuum leak. So, I mean, I know when we're doing this, we're getting rid of a lot of things, but these are 30-some-year-old rubber hoses that get brittle. These are still kind of softish, but check your hoses. It's just that little bit much more of insurance that everything's going to work out good in the end. All right. Again, sorry about the camera shakiness and stuff. That's just me today. So we're going to talk about vacuum lines. So we went from having 4 vacuum lines, well, to a gazillion vacuum lines now to having 4 vacuum lines. So I'll show you what's going on here. So we had talked about keeping this. Hope you guys did, because if not, this makes it a little bit tougher. You can do without it, but this way makes it run just that much better. Some people won't believe me, but it helps. So you're going to have your first nipple here. Goes from this one, comes down to here. It tees. Now if you look through some of your old vacuum stuff, this is what the T came from. So that T comes down to this vacuum port. And then this hose runs to, you can kind of see back there, the bottom side of the distributor. And then this second nipple and hose runs to this vacuum port right there. And that third one runs to right here. Pretty simple. Went from having a zillion hoses to 4. Once you get the car running, make sure the timing's set, get the carburetor fairly adjusted. You can actually break this loose. It's a 12 mil. Grab it with some good pliers and twist a little bit, and you can hear the engine will change and stuff. It's just something you kind of got to tinker with. So you go from having a ton of stuff to very little. So I know this is a little off subject per se with really what we're doing, but not really. It's just one of those things you check with buying one of these old Hondas is, when was the last time the timing belt was done, a valve adjustment, what the oil, what it looks like inside the under the valve cover. So this engine, the odometer says 200,000, which, I mean, I could believe it, but I mean, there's no like sludge buildup. I mean, it's pretty clean, at least under the valve cover. And you come over here to like the top of the head. I mean, it's a little stained, but nothing like it, you know, there's not a lot of sludge. So somebody kept up with the oil changes. And then I was looking at the timing belt, and as you can see, it's an OEM Honda timing belt. And from what it looks like under the cover, the water pump's been changed, possibly the idler pulley. So it makes me feel good that that's been dealt with. Just so some people know, 84, 85 had this style of cam gear, which has the up mark, and then the two, so you can see the slot there, and then the notch there. That's alignment with the head. The 86, 87 have a different style cam gear, which I've said in other videos. The F-Series Accords, the A1s, F22A1 out of the Accords, share the same cam gear, which, you know, Honda did weird things back then. But so I was saying, this is technically only a 12 valve. You have 2 intake on each side, 1 exhaust on each side. Oh, excuse me. And then these valves right here, these little ones, control the CVCC. So I am going to do a valve adjustment. I was just curious to, you know, how clean it looked in here, which I'm really happy with. So that makes me think that this car was fairly taken care of over the years, which makes me happy. But even if you look, I know I haven't really showed much down here per se, but I mean, even the radiator, the original fan, it's still got the overflow. Alternator, I'm assuming it's been replaced. But I mean, it's overall a really clean engine bay. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually adjust the valves. I'm not gonna really do a video on that because it's kind of boring, and I just kind of don't feel like doing that right now. But that's where we're at with this right now. So as I said well, actually probably it'll be tomorrow. It'll be the day after the time I get this up. But I'll go get some fuel line, filter, the vacuum hose. We'll change the filter that's actually in the back of the car, which most people neglect, which I'd imagine on this car it's been neglected, so that'll be probably pretty dirty. So I'm going to go ahead and get into adjusting these valves. So I got the new fuel line on. Small stuff for the return is 1 1/4 inch, or 1/4 inch, excuse me. And then the rest of it's 3/16. I put in a new filter. I put a see-through one in for right now because there was absolutely no gas in there. I put some gas in there, so this is probably going to suck up some dirt. I'm going to change the rear filter, but I suggest replacing the fuel lines while you're here. Just as I said before, it's 30-some-year-old hoses. They're going to be cracked or eventually go bad. And with some people's luck, you're going to be on the road, pop a fuel line, then what do you do? So, actually, with the car, it came with some Bosch plugs. So, I'm actually going to put some NGKs back in her. I'm waiting for the valve cover to dry up. I'm going to throw some paint on that because you can't have a real Honda without a red or a green or a pink valve cover. So, we're going to go green because I have that color, I think. We'll see. I have some black too, so I don't know. We'll go from there. I'm going to throw in some gap these. Throw these in there. It has NGKs in there now, but I'm also going to put the plugs and wire, or cap and rotor on since it came with a new one. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'm kind of curious to see how this engine's been running. You can tell a lot by spark plugs. Let's see what plug number 1 has to show us. Well, it looks it's all right. It's a little blackish brown. So, I mean, it looks like it's running okay. We'll go ahead and pull out the other ones and see how those are looking. They make, actually, I have this for this. I've ran into this problem a few times, but they make a spark plug hole chaser that it's not terribly a bad idea to run through these. You know, over the years of plugs being changed, there's oil and grease that builds up. And it's not necessarily something you have to do, but it's something I like to do. So, this plug, if the camera will focus, it's running all right. It's a little dark. For then again, I don't know how long this has been running terrible, so it's really hard to judge, you know, because it had vacuum leaks issues, it had high idle. All the things I've described. Now, I would recommend, like I said before, after you do this, put a fresh set of plugs in there if you haven't. Make sure your cap and rotor ignition system are up to par. It'll make it a lot easier to get things running the way they should. So this one, it's got the, if it'll focus, it's got the, it's a little bit browner, as you can see. So that one's a little bit better, but the gap is huge. Now, one thing I've never understood, and then again, I haven't really researched into this, why they put a oxygen sensor on a carbureted car, because there is no computer. So I don't know, maybe it has something to do with inside one of the old emissions boxes. I'm not sure. but I'll leave it in there. But for some reason they put a O2 sensor in these, so yeah, that's something I'll research. And then so here's this one too. It's a little rich in my book, but then again, these do run kind of weird the way the combustion chamber is on these. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other plugs installed. I'll get the cap and rotor back on, and we'll be pretty close to firing it up here shortly. So for me personally, there's a reason I only run NGK plug wires. That's what was on the car, but they're old and they look cracked, so I'm not going to use them. But these are Autolites. I didn't even know Autolite made spark plugs. It just shows you how old some of this stuff is. But I just hate how much extra they have. Now I'm sure once I get the valve cover on with the grommets and stuff, it'll help. But that's why I tend to recommend NGK products, because they're not dangle, they're not extra, they're perfect size fit. But I got the cap and rotor on, new plug wires, got the new plugs in. Just got to put the, having some issue with the coil, making the tack all jumpy. So I got to figure out what's up with that. If worst case scenario, I have another coil I can throw in, which I just might do anyways, that I know that's good. But she's coming along. Gonna get the EGR plates, block off stuff back on, and once the valve cover is finished, we'll be ready to fire this up. So see you guys shortly. So I just traced out the gasket onto a piece of 1x3. It's pretty close. This little bit you don't have there, I'm gonna put, the gasket will be fine, but it's pretty simple. Just drew it out, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut out, and I'll drill some holes, and then we'll have that one done. It's pretty simple, but here we go. So here's just the, this is fairly thick. You don't have to do it this thick. It's just what I happen to have laying around. So here it's cut out, pretty basic. Now it's got 2 holes in it. The gasket will go down over once I'm finished, but see, just pretty simple as that. I'm going to throw some black paint on. Like I was saying, you're going to see a little bit there, but that's not a big deal because you'll have it all plugged off. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one painted, and then we'll get it installed. So for this process, like I said, you can keep this along with the other EGR valve. You can keep that stuff there, cap these off, but I'm going to make my own block off plates. So I'm going to use this for a template. So I'm going to cut this here, cut this off. And I'll probably end up cutting this portion of plastic off, and I'll have my permanent template of the cutout. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, then I'll get it traced out on the flat stock, and we'll go ahead and get it cut. So here's the other plate that covers the gaping hole here. Pretty simple to make. So I'm going to go ahead and get that, some paint on that, and then get everything finally installed. So I got that block off plate installed. I mean, you can kind of tell it looks simple and easy. So I'm going to let the silicone tack up and dry on that. And then get the valve cover back on. And we'll do the fill filter, and then we'll be sure to fire it up. So that'll be the end of the video. I hope this helps. Part 4 will be here shortly with it running. And then I will go over how to really kind of fine-tune things and all that jazz, and then we'll take it out for a test drive. So like, subscribe, comment, whatever, and thanks for watching.